Hey, hi, and howdy to all my sweet friends out there. Thank you for returning and joining me here for this video. And if you are new and this is your first time here, my name is Courtney. I do food and kitchen related content, grocery hauls on Tuesdays, what's for dinners on Saturdays, and I've recently started doing like these meal preps and what we ate for the weekend kind of videos on Thursdays. Typically, I like to cook on Friday afternoon, and it's going to be like enough food to get us through the whole weekend so I can take the weekend off and be lazy or hang out with my family, or we can do something fun. I really just like to kind of have my weekends free and open. We homeschool all week long. We stay super busy. We have co-op. We've got martial arts a couple of times a week. We've got all kinds of things going on. So I really do like for Saturday and Sunday to be open for us to do kind of anything we want to. And I do that by meal prepping on Friday. So this week we decided we were going to have a Middle Eastern feast. If you don't know, I've actually made this one other time on my channel. I grew up for quite a few years living overseas. My dad taught English at a university when I was a child. So I actually grew up eating a lot of Middle Eastern food. And it is definitely one of my favorite things. It's got so much beautiful flavor. It's really bright and vibrant and delicious. I've introduced it to my family and they all love it too. So before I get started on that though, I did go ahead and shred up a couple of rotisserie chickens. Now I buy these at Sam's Club. They're $4.98 each. I purchase usually 2 to 3 every week. I do make my own homemade dog food. So I took the 4 chicken breasts and they're going to go off to the side for a meal next week. And the rest of the chicken is all in that zip top, and that's all I have left over. The zip top bag is for my dogs. The dogs will eat a lot of the meat that we don't always love. You know, like when you start getting on the bottom of the chicken and stuff, we as people typically don't eat as much of that because it's kind of soggy. My dogs don't care. They just love chicken. So very little of these rotisserie chickens ever goes to waste. I mean, very, very little. I've gotten it down to a science. And I just mix it with some rice and some canned veggies or fruit or frozen blueberries, whatever I happen to have on hand that is dog safe. And boom, my dogs have food for a whole week. In case you are wondering, I do have 3 dogs. My oldest son, Xander, has a Chihuahua. And then I have a little mini Australian Shepherd, and he is our newest addition. Then we have a Husky. He really is my dog because he just loves me and I love him, but he is supposed to be a family pet. Anyway, that is my brood of animals, and I make their food all the time. All right, so now that the chicken's done, let's get some bacon in because my gosh, y'all, I love me some homemade cookies. Now what I've done here, and I will link it below, is I took my favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe. It's one that I found back in January when I was doing the pantry challenge and I wanted a sweet treat. And I thought, oh, I've got everything for chocolate chip cookies. I looked up this recipe and it is so delicious. So this is what I make. Yes, it has way too many chocolate chips in it, and that's what makes them fantastic. But I decided today, instead of chocolate chip cookies, we're going to do white chocolate macadamia nut cookies. If you watched my grocery haul from about a week ago, you would see that I bought some macadamia nuts. They were a really great price at Sam's Club. They're one of the more pricey nuts out there on the market. So it's not something I buy very often, but when I see them for a good price, I like to indulge every now and then because I could literally just eat them by the handful. So I decided to just use my favorite cookie recipe and add in white chocolate chips and macadamia nuts in place of the chocolate chips that it calls for. And again, I will link that recipe down below. I found it on Pinterest. It's really good. What makes it fantastic is the cookies stay soft. Like no matter, I've had them almost a week in my house and they have stayed soft the entire time. They store great on the countertop in an airtight container, and they are so delicious. It is mostly brown sugar, but there is a little bit of white granulated sugar in there. And I think that brown sugar is what really, really keeps them like soft. And I also think that's what kind of gives them the really nice flavor. They do have a really, really great cookie flavor, one that you don't get from store-bought mixes or anything like that. So this is by far my favorite recipe. I think I could just make the cookies without any chocolate chips in them and still love it, just because the cookie dough itself is just so fantastic. And yes, I know we're not supposed to, but I always take a little nibble, y'all. I cannot help myself. Cookie dough is one of those indulgences that I just absolutely love so much. I do know that they make edible cookie dough. In fact, a while back, one of my kids was doing gluten-free and dairy-free and all this because we were trying to find what was triggering his migraines. And I bought some bake and bake brownies, but they were gluten-free and dairy-free and all that. So it's just edible dough. I wish I could remember the name of the brand because I would tell y'all, but it's one of the best things I've ever eaten. And yes, you could just eat it raw straight out of the fridge. It says it on the package. So delicious. Anyway, we're nearing the end of the cookies. I did put my white chocolate chips in there, and I'm adding my macadamia nuts now. I did not toast them because we're going to be baking the cookies. I always find that macadamia nuts are one of those nuts that are a little bit more sensitive to temperature, and they can easily burn or over bake. So I prefer to just put them in as is. And right there was the moment that something went wrong with my mixer. I forgot about it after making these cookies, and I just pulled it out a little while ago because I needed it to make dinner. And once I turned it on, I realized, oh crap, it was messed up last week. So I've got to get my husband to look at that. I hope that it is something that's easily fixable. I love that mixer. I've had it for years. It's not like a KitchenAid or anything. It was something I found on Amazon, but I love, love, love this mixer so much. So hopefully it's something repairable. All right, so I like to use a cookie scoop. I do spray my cookie sheet and I put parchment paper on it. I just find that that really gives me the best baking experience. Now, I will also say I do not properly space my cookies, so do as I say and not as I do. You should leave a lot more space in between your cookies than I do. I don't mind breaking mine apart when they're all done baking, and I don't want to have to bake in two separate trips through the oven just because I live in Texas and it's still pretty hot outside. Like, actually, this week is pretty nice. This week it's been rainy and cool where I live out here in the west part of Texas, but last week was still miserably hot. We were under heat advisories every day. We were getting notices from our electric grid out here telling us we had to conserve. So I was just really not wanting to run my oven that much. During the summer, it's just kind of like that where I live. I don't want to have to turn it on that much because it heats everything up. It's a gas stove. So I just baked them all in batch. They were fabulous. All right, so on to the Middle Eastern food. I'm starting off by making hummus. And yes, I know these garbanzo beans look funny. I actually use dry garbanzo beans and I soak them overnight. Then I put them in my pressure cooker and intentionally overcook them because I'm trying this method I saw to get super creamy hummus, and it worked, but I still think I really favor using canned garbanzo beans. One, I don't think it's worth the trouble of doing all this, and two, they just kind of taste better. But to those garbanzo beans, I added in garlic, lemon juice, salt, pepper, and tahini. And look how creamy that is. Like, it really was smooth and just perfectly creamy. Unlike when I use the store-bought ones and there's like a lot of skins left in there and stuff like that, it definitely does yield a much better texture. I will list my full recipe down below. I'm also throwing together some tabbouleh. This is one of my favorites. It's a very light and healthy salad. So I'm actually going to use part of this that you see here for tabbouleh and part of it to make the meat, which is kofta. I season mine with parsley and onion, and I put parsley and onion in my tabbouleh, and I just find it's easier for me to put both of those ingredients in the food processor together to just kind of like chop them and mince them. And then I can pull some out for the meat and some out for the tabbouleh, and it just makes my life a little bit easier. I mean, you can always chop it by hand if you want to, but this is just so much faster. So I just popped the onion and the parsley in there, and I took it for a spin over on the food processor. It looks like that. It's broken down pretty nicely. That's perfect for tabbouleh. Tabbouleh is a salad that's made with grains and parsley. A lot of people will put in onions, tomato, and cucumber, lemon juice, salt, pepper, olive oil. I did skip the cucumber today, but I did put in tomatoes and stuff. You'll see that here in just a little bit. But I left the rest of it in there so that we can make the meat. So to the parsley onion mix I'm adding in a lot of garlic. I'm using roasted garlic, so it's not as strong as if it was fresh. If you're using fresh garlic, you'll probably want to stop at like 3 cloves. Then I added in salt, pepper. I like to add in a little bit of olive oil just because I feel like it yields a juicier product at the end. It's not as dried out. And then my least favorite ingredient, cumin. I know I've mentioned it before a lot lately that I really don't care for it, but I will also say it's greatly missed if you don't put it in this dish, so definitely add it in. And I am choosing to do a beef and lamb mixture. Traditionally, there would not be any beef in it. This is just the way that I like to make it. Lamb's very expensive where I live, so I just kind of do a combo of the two together to stretch the lamb a little bit further, but still get some of that flavor. If you don't like lamb, feel free to use whatever you choose. If it's going to be ground beef or ground pork, it's totally up to you. Also, don't use a lean version of the meat because it will dry out when you're grilling it. So I thought about doing patties this time, but I ended up just going with my traditional like sausage shape, kind of like a little log. That's the way I normally do it. Traditionally, that's the way it's served. Usually it's like much longer than mine and it's on a skewer and then grilled, but I am not going to do that. I didn't soak any skewers, and I just kind of find this is easier for my husband to grill because he does all the grilling in our household. And this is easier for me to kind of just make. And so I just went ahead and divided it all up and just rolled it out into these little sausage shapes. And I like to set this in my fridge overnight so that the onion flavor can really kind of like meld into everything, but you don't have to. That's just my personal preference. And then my husband grills it low and slow so that it doesn't get like all burned. And I wish I would have taken a picture for you guys, but I did not get a picture of the finished product of this meat. And I'm so sad about it because it really did look fantastic. I'll see if my husband took any pictures. Sometimes he does, so I'll check with him. And I will add it in at the very end if he did. All right, so here is the tabbouleh. So I've got my parsley onion mix. I added in some tomatoes that I diced up, and then I'm adding in my grains. So I traditionally, what I grew up eating overseas was always bulgur, which is wheat. I found a bulgur quinoa mix that I really like at HEB, but I've also used rice in the past and it's fine, and couscous was even great. I really liked it when I made it with couscous, but it does kind of make it a little bit heavier. So to that, I'm adding in olive oil and lemon juice, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and that is all there is to it. You really do want to let this set though in your fridge. So I mix the grains in when they're still really hot for me cooking them, so it kind of really opens up the flavor of the parsley and the onion and lets it just kind of meld with everything. And when you put the lemon juice on that hot grain parsley mix, it really does, you know, brighten it up and take out the flavor. Okay, time for some sauces. So I always make the meat, the tabbouleh. I make rice, and I make two sauces, one for the meat, and the other one I like to put on the rice, so does my oldest son. And then I make two dips, which are the hummus, and then one called baba ganoush. We'll see that in a little bit. It's my favorite. It's an eggplant dip. But we're going to start with this. It's kind of like a riff on tzatziki, and I don't really know if I'm following any particular recipe or if I just throw this together off of what I think I like, but it always tastes good, and my family always likes it. So I start off with half a cucumber. You can grate this and that's fine. I like to just put everything in the food processor just because it's easy. It really does take a lot of the work out. To that, I like to add in some mint and some dill. I don't always have mint, so you can skip that step. If you're using lamb though, I do highly recommend adding the mint in because it really is quite a perfect pair. Lamb has a taste. It's kind of a gamey taste, but it's nice. And the mint just really pairs nicely with it, kind of cuts through that. So I really do recommend if you're using lamb in this, do use mint in this sauce. And then to that, I'm adding like half a container of yogurt. It's just plain yogurt. You can use Greek if you want to. I find that I really don't care at the end of the day one way or the other because I'm putting so much stuff in it. So I just use the cheapest yogurt, the store brand plain yogurt, and it goes for a spin in my food processor so that it's nice and pureed and it looks like that. I do add a little bit of lemon juice and salt and pepper because lemon juice is apparently in everything I'm making today. I didn't realize how much I used until I was watching myself make it on here. There's a lot of lemon juice in this. It's great that I like it though. It's really bright and vibrant and very summery. So to my food processor, after I dump that out, we're just going to make the second sauce, which is also a yogurt-based sauce. So I really don't feel like washing it out. I don't think it matters. So I'm going to add in the other half of the container of yogurt. I'm going to add in some cilantro, and then it calls for a jalapeno, but all I have in my fridge was a hatch chili. So I just threw in a hatch chili. It's a lot more chili than a jalapeno. Like there's a lot more going in there, but I think it worked out great. You also want to juice a lemon and add in your salt and your pepper and then take it for a spin in the food processor just like the last one until it's nicely pureed and you get this beautiful sauce. This one's my favorite. Tastes fabulous on rice. It's good with the meat and stuff too, but I really love it over my rice. The cilantro, if you like cilantro, it tastes amazing. If you don't like cilantro, I can't say you won't like it. I mean, just give it a try. All right, baba ganoush is an eggplant dip, and it is my favorite. So as you saw, I had two little tiny eggplants, and they are going to go under the broiler at 500 degrees. And y'all, your girl forgot to poke holes in them, so they did explode in my oven. Oh my gosh, make sure you pierce your eggplants before you put them in there because they will totally explode everywhere. I cannot believe I forgot, but I did. There was a lot of oven cleaning going on. It was such a mess. All right, so while those are doing their thing, I'm going to go ahead and make the rice. So I've got a cup and a half of rice that I rinsed, and I'm adding it into my pot with a little bit of oil and half of an onion diced and some garlic, and I'm letting it just kind of like saute for a few minutes. You want to like let the rice start to toast just a little bit, but you don't want it to burn, so really keep a close eye on it and, you know, keep it moving around in the pan and stuff. This just helps yield a better product at the end. It always has like a little bit better flavor, gets a little nuttiness to it. Just helps overall. To all of this, I'm going to add in some water and some salt and then some saffron. If you don't have saffron, use turmeric in its place. Whenever I'm out of saffron, that's what I always put in here. It yields a brighter color and it still has a really nice flavor. It's not exactly the same, but it's good. I like it. If I'm out of saffron, I think it's a great substitute. It's close. It's just not exactly the same, but that would be my recommendation, just like a teaspoon of turmeric. There's the saffron. It is expensive, but I can get it at my local HEB here for $6, and the amount that's in there lasts me quite a while. So I don't mind buying it just because it lasts me quite a long time. But if you're not interested in purchasing it, like I said, just use turmeric and that's fine. So that was the last of my saffron. I put that in there, pop a lid on, and let it do its thing. Rice takes about 20 minutes or so on low. All right, there are my exploded eggplants, what was left of them anyway. So I put them in my food processor, and then I'm going to add in tahini. I am very heavy-handed on the tahini when it comes to baba ganoush. That's just the way I like it. And I'm also very heavy-handed with the pepper because it makes it taste the way it did when I was a kid growing up and we were living overseas in the places I would eat. You also want to add in some lemon and some salt and a little bit of olive oil. And that's really all there. Oh, some garlic. I like roasted garlic for this, my confit garlic. And I do have that link down below if you're interested in making it at home, but you can always use fresh and it's no big deal. It still tastes great. Just go for a whirl in your food processor until you get a nice creamy, dreamy dip. And this one is my favorite. And I just serve all of this food with pita bread on the side. It's so, so good. If you guys have any questions, drop them down below in the comment section. I will be more than happy to answer them. This is not exactly authentic. This is me doing my best to replicate what I grew up eating as a child, my fond memories of living overseas and the things we got to do. It's just my attempt to kind of replicate it. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I will list the recipes down below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it so, so much. And I will see you guys, let's see, on Saturday for my What's for Dinner. Have a great one, y'all. Bye.